Hello, my name is Teresita Blanco, the Artsy sister, and we're continuing with Saturnastra Lamina. This is chapter 10. Let me see. Before leaving, Sphynx comes to see you at the stable, and he comments, I was a little bit disappointed by your lack of intervention. Those witches had it coming, and I'm not the sort of person to defend evildoers, you say sternly. For not shackles and hands your bag, and you see inside a large collection of talents, and sneering he says before leaving. And I thought I would save you the trouble of rummaging through the options. You pout. Oh man, this thing is like freezing over. The fairies spread about to avoid speaking with you, and as the children goes, they set about to relocate all of the items in the inn before departing. You travel further south, and by the river edge to escape the winter, and you eventually are running, and when you enter the lands of the Southern Kingdom, and this was the lane tacitly given to one of the unincorporated lands of the continent. And peasants had not bothered to conquer it, since the rulers of these lands had been wise enough to pay tribute. Then again, 200 years ago, the southern continent and Venageros were allies in their fight against the elves. And this allegiance has slowly eroded over the past 2 centuries, in part because of the heirs of the southern kingdoms are humans, and humans have very short memory. While writing, you amuse yourself by informing Irving and Fiore of the history of this land, and Fiore was very familiar with it, and she found shocking the fact that they were allied because of the elves, and she did not know that the elves had become slaves as a result of their war crimes. And you stand near an interesting part of the river, and the Bashmago takes his time to return the pendulum to Irving. And he was apparently curious about how it worked, and the river in question was called Boreal, and it only flowed during the winter time in this region, and it was an offshoot of one of the twin rivers, and it is famous for its clear, crystalline, frigid water. Fiore comments, why is the river swirling like that over there? And she points towards a place where the whirlpools are forming, and you answer, those are whirlpools, there must be a crack there that is swallowing up the water. Oh, she says, looking curiously at the whirlpool. And the Bashmago frowns and shakes his head sadly, and he opens his mouth to call you on your life, but chooses to remain silent. His face is soon blasted by a strong surge of sand, and the mini sandstorm lasts for a few minutes, but it is enough to cause a panic, and it takes about an hour for you to pull your little party back together, and the ones who were mostly spooked were the horses, and the 2 Fiore and Irving and a little joyride in 2 different directions, and they had gone quite a long way before they regained control of their mounts. And again you start to look at the whirlpools with your group, and Irving comments, that was strange. Indeed, you say frowning, and you dismount the horses and take on your Sphynx form, and Fiore's eyes opens wide, and she is still not used to your transformation, and as soon as you enter the icy banks, you feel a chill run down your spine. And it is not that the water is cold, rather for some reason you had the expectation of feeling cold water, and this expectation and the pressure you feel behind your head can only mean one thing. And Eric's mouth begins to shift uneasily, and Eric voices his fear and says, we should get out of here and continue on our way, there's no reason to linger. And what's the hurry, asked Fiore, and I want to see the whirlpool some more. No, we should leave here before it attacks, says Irwin alarmed. Don't start teasing me, Irwin, there's no monster in the river, whined Fiore. If it will get you to come down, I will go into the whirlpools and check for monsters, you say, entering the maelstrom. And the river is deeper than you expect, and as you sink deeper, you notice the shade of something sinking beside you. And focusing your eye, you recognize the hands Astaron and Cor Caroli, and you smile when you realize that Irving has developed a little something called common sense. And Astaron says this with Irving's voice, is there another one of those abandoned things down there? Probably, you comment, and the whirlpool eventually opens up, revealing an azure sky, and the air feels stagnant like breathing inside a sandstorm, and the world below shows a strange adorned statues in adoration poses, and sand has covered most of the statues, and beside you flows a river, and there's a hint of a forest, but it is also covered in sand. And as you walk towards the forest, you know more statues, and the ones further outside the sand have offerings of garlands of flowers, jewelry, and other items. And the hounds circle around each other and sniff the statue with suspicion, and the hound Cor Caroli says in Irving's voice, and why hasn't this one attacked? I don't know, you say, looking about. The air gets even more stagnant and visibility grows poor, and you spend most of the time coughing up sand or bumping into trees, and Irving's hounds have at least managed to follow your scent trail, and the storm suddenly dies down, and at the edge of the river, in the center of the chasm, there's a whirlpool, and at the center, in the only clearing, there is a small figure of a lady. And you fly down there to be near it, and you start regretting it when you note the size difference. And the maiden has multiple arms, all covering her face, and she sobs uncontrollably as she murmurs the same thing over and over. And by her feet you know several extremely small trinkets. And every uses the rising core Carly makes the mistake of picking up a sword with his mouth, and the moment that he does, the monstrosity starts screeching. The battle then ensues, and the siren storm starts attacking you as well as the water element, and they take monstrous shapes, and the statues march against you in a confusing maelstrom, and everything swirls around you in utter confusion, and in such a state, the proven strategy is to burst, and you begin to glow with azure color. The same is done by the ghosts who you drag along, and you evaporate everything around you, and you create a clearing, and the hands cover in the face melt, and it reveals the gorgeous face of a maiden, who is crying tears of blood, and she speaks in a voice, and curses after curses in an unknown language, and you feel the curse affecting your body. And it's a good thing that they're old-fashioned curses like infertility, famine, plagues, and pestilence. And the other soul inside Irving takes over Astanon, who stands before you to shield you from the most aggressive curses. And these death curses would kill you, even should the abandoned be slain, and based on its looks and dialect, it is one of the first and oldest abandons in existence, and you want to scream and tell it that the kingdom she curses no longer exists, and there is no need to curse the world anymore, and she has already gotten her revenge. And in the end you remember that trying to rationalize with this creature is an effort in futility, and we're about to argue with something that will no longer exist. And Astanon starts burning its surrounding in a brilliant display of fireworks, and as for Korkali, by random astrological coincidence summons up a strange spell that distorts the shape of this abandon. And slowly it sinks down and fragments in a bloody whirlpool of body parts, snakes, roaches, and other disgusting vermin. And this mass of destruction is at the same time incinerated by the magic of Astanon. And in time, only imperceptible small fragments of the monster remains, and the fairies gather around you and resonate to completely destroy the abandon at an anatomical level. And while there's no trace of the creature, the area finally breaks down, and you find yourself entering a pool of water which is only waist deep. And as for Irving, he has summoned his dogs to arbitrarily dog paddle against the current, and Fiona scratches her head and comments, "So the water really wasn't that deep?" "Not at all," you say, smiling sadly, and taking a deep breath, Irving says, "What a bother." "And what's bothering you, Irving?" asks Fiona. "Nothing," says Irving, sighing. And you look through the waters and pick up the only trinket that wasn't washed away by the river, and Irving recognizes it as the rusted out version of the sword he had wanted to pick up. And you say, smiling, "Here, for you." And Irving takes the sword and smiles, and Fiona grimaces when she looks at the rusted piece of junk, and she comments, "If you want a sword, we can always buy a new one in town." "Nah, I prefer this one," says Irving, putting it in his stash. "Why? That's so stupid. Why bother with a rusted blade?" Fiona remarks. "It has sentimental value," says Irving, chuckling. Pouts Fiona. And you continue twirling the river, and from time to time you imagine you hear the wailing. And you also imagine that your ears are ringing from the noise, and Irving also started to cough for no apparent reason, and he claims that the air feels dusty around him, and other residual sensations are nothing more than a cursed imagination. And a week passes, and a certain degree of normalcy returns to your party, and Irving has finally stopped thinking about the wailing abandon, and his coping abilities work marvelously. Still, he could not help but grow paranoid whenever he was near any natural bodies of water. And since resting at the campfire, Fiore asked, "When are you going to continue with my lessons?" I'm game whenever you are, but I will not chase after you to force you to do something you do not want to, you say, while you continue to kindle the flames." "Oh, that's a first," says Fiore, frowning. She says, "Why isn't everyone doing the magic thing in the tower?" "We tried," you say, looking towards the river. "School isn't really my thing," says Irving. "I was not really learning much of anything." "But you did master the fleshing thing pretty quickly," says Fiore. "It was just a simple repetition, and I was already used to monotonous repetitive tasks that require a little supervision. And when I was a child, I used to take care of all the farm animals, and I also had to do, well, you get the idea," says Irving, petting his favorite goat. "How long does it take for a kid to grow?" asks Fiore, petting the head of the kid goat. About a year, you say. No, really, it takes about 18 to 20 months, corrects Irving. And scratching your hair, you say, oh yeah, that's right, I'm still not used to this odd time schedule. And an eerie silence follows, and even the nearby river seems to have gone mute. And everyone looks about him agitated, and his agitation is shared by the ghosts and fairies, and you tell them, relax, there's nothing to be scared of. The thing only attacks elves anyway. And Fiona looks towards the darkness while clutching her doll to her chest, and then she asks, what thing? Just the embodiment of silence, you say. I don't get it, says Fiona, voicing out Irving's confusion. Well, there is a creature that when he passes by, everything grows real quiet, and the more quiet it is, the closer he is to you, you say, gesturing with your hands. In cringing, Fiona grabs hold of Irving's shoulder, and trembling she says, but it was really, really quiet just a moment ago, and why does it want with us? Shrugging your shoulders, you say, who knows, probably nothing. I think you're just trying to scare me, whines Fiona. Maybe. You look cute when you're terrified, you say, smiling. Frowning, Fiona says, you're mean, I'm going to bed, good night. And Irving lingers a bit by the campfire, and you know that he has something genuine to complain about. And sighing, you say, well, what is it? I was thinking about the wishes. Why do you not help them? If they're so important to your fight, as Irving. Those people, were not true magic users. Sure, they had a bit of magic in them, but it was not enough to warrant their attention. Still, they could summon enough magic to harm regular humans, and frankly, they got what they deserve, causing plagues and pestilence, just because, you say, frowning. But maybe they were just doing it to get on ahead in life through petty thievery and murder, suggested Irving. Don't be fooled, my dear Irving, says the Bashmago. Those women were evil, plain and simple. And what sort of horrible monster steals a child's doll to put a curse on her? It is a popular money-making strategy for witches, and they create the plague, and then afterwards they sell the cure to the little people, you say, frowning. Oh, I suppose you're right, and people like that should not be allowed to exist, said Irving, playing with his pendulum. And he summons out the two dogs, Astaron and Corcaroli, and they go pitifully as the dogs start drawing nearer. And Irving gestures towards the dog which ignore his command, and they eventually settle down when they know that the goat is ignoring them. I think erasing the resistance is a bit too much. Still, you say, yawning. And you feel a cold wind passing through your wings, and you decide to go to the river to clean them, and Irving shakes his head sadly, and the Bashmago finally says, your wings are fine, there's not a speck of dirt on them. No, they're not, you whine, and removing the notched feathers to have them replaced by new ones, and they need to be perfect, and your existence depends on it. And the winter months you spend following the river. And it still did not feel too much like winter since your group had traveled far south, and the fairies are not too familiar with this part of the kingdom, and the northern kingdom and its capital of Vertebrae are the problematic spots, as well as the western kingdom. And we're close to New Year, Fiore asks, where are we going? I don't know, you say. I am bored of this wilderness and the bugs, and can we settle down somewhere for good, as Fiore? We can. Everyone needs to be near nature to recharge his charms, you say. And the Bashmago corrects. I thought you said that the charms only needed to be exposed to the Titan moon once a month, and then we can easily just do that in the city. And as your children, God has told you, this certain statutory limitation only applies to fey magic. Okay, you got me. So there really isn't a real reason to settle down in a town, you say, frowning. And if you want to, we can find a nice one with a big cemetery, and you can guard it just like the good old days, says Irving. Yes, it will be just like the good old days, and I will go into town and murder people every so often, says the Bashmago, laughing. Fiona remarks and saying, don't even joke about that. Killing is a sin, perhaps for the living, and I'm already technically in the afterlife, and maybe it was the will of the gods for me to become a revenant or whatever, says the Bashmago, smiling. The gods have nothing to do with what you are, and even in that form, Arasa can still take you away, so do try not to be a nuisance, and bother even enough, and they will make it their business to be rid of you once and for all, you're warned. You're right, Lamina, my apologies, and I will try to behave, if only to avoid going to Arasa's realm. And by the way, what happens when he takes you away, asked the Bashmago? I'm a bit curious about that myself, and I was told by the priest that if I'm good, Lara takes me to the world to experience infinite bliss, and if I'm bad, Arasa takes me away. And the end is pretty much the same, except that both gods go about getting the desired results into opposing fashions, you start saying when Fiore interrupts you. Start changing the subject, and you do this every time we bring up the matters of settling down in a place for good, and also while having you find a good magic teacher for Irving, and we can all be self-taught geniuses like you, complains Fiore. Giggling, the fairy said Lamina had a teacher too. Quiet, you yelled, looking at the fairies. And the matter of finding a place to settle down was brought up again and again the following days, and since reached a tipping point when the mother of Irving's favorite goat died, and she had gotten bitten by a poisonous snake and had died some hours later, and you were far too dense to bother with the snake since you did not have any natural predators, and in the end you yielded to logic, and it was fine for you to wander about with ease, but small humans could not keep up such a pace. And before choosing a place, you give a quick visit to your father using the anchor, and yawning he comments, I was expecting you. I need a good teacher for Irving, you say. So you finally decided to allow the child to learn magic, says your father smirking. You make it sound like I'm holding him back, you say, pouting. It was not my intention, and I suggest you go to the city of Irving. I think that is what it's called right now. It should be in the southern kingdom, and there, in the middle of the city, dig a hole until you find the inverted magic tower. And at the top, or in this case the bottom, you will find an elf mage who will be able to teach Irving magic, says your father, and then he hands you a map with the exact coordinates of where you must dig. The next morning you relay the information to your companions, and Fiore complains. And we are going to Irving, that's exclaims. We are going to Irving, that's perfect, I have family there and we can stay there. I think we should avoid your family, Fiore, suggested Bashmago. As far as they are concerned, Lamina spirited you away. But I left a letter explaining everything, whined Fiore. It doesn't matter, you're an 8-year-old girl, and you're not supposed to have the power over your own decisions, says the Bashmago. Well, why not, yelled Fiore furiously. Because adults are bigger and stronger than you, and they run the show, and make all the decisions. Going against your will means that you forgo the safety of your family, and as a child without a family to protect you, adults will take advantage of you, and they will hurt you, because that is the sort of world we live in, warns the Bashmago. And Fiona's face turns to be red, and she holds her doll and starts crying, and Irving pats her head and says, Don't worry, we're your family now, and I promise you that Lamina will protect you, whatever happens. And will you protect me as well, Irving, asked Fiona? The gods know I wish I could, and I can't even protect myself, says Irving more to himself. And Fitzcoat gives him a reassuring tug of his coat. And Irving smiles and tries his best to balance his green thoughts, and he has been feeling down ever since he realized that the girl from his dream was real. And he had seen her act independently of him and in the real world through his pendulum, and a new dangerous thought was creeping inside his mind, and he finally understood what you meant when you called him a chimera. You start your journey towards Irving, and the city had kept the name given to it by its own founder, and all the mage towers in the continent of vertebrae were founded by elves, and they were natural teachers since their longevity gave them a knack for dealing with all sorts of people, and they had seen it all in a sense, and the new elves of this new age had chosen to isolate themselves from the world, and even when working as slaves they maintained an emotional and mental distance from the happenings of the human world. And when you arrive to the city you find your path barred, and the city requires an official travel permit, and in order to get inside, Fiore asked the guards to contact her family, and after waiting outside for a few days, a vassal is sent to verify the identity of Fiore, and this vassal happened to be her nana, Sodoma, an elven maiden with a hilarious name, and with her usual elven coldness, Sodona says, Your family was under the impression that you were dead. I don't see why not. I wrote them that I was going on a journey and where I was at, when Fiore folding her arms. And please, we don't want any trouble, and if you let us in, I can explain everything, you say condescendingly. And Sodona ponders a bit on what to do, and in the end, a slight smile is painted on her lips, and she tells the guards, This visitor belongs to the Rigget, and they misplace a travel permit after Red Vicious bandit attack. The bailiff gives a cynical smile but allows your group to pass nonetheless, and there is something familiar about the bailiff, but at the moment you cannot seem to remember him. And after making your way through the castle, and the city opens up before you, and it is a natural barrier in the north formed by the river, and to the west it has the farmlands, and beyond the forest, and to the east and south there are only plains and a lake. And at the center of the city there is an obelisk, and it marks the spot where the entrance of the tower is located. And local superstitious stipulates that if the obelisk is destroyed, misfortune will befall the city. And beyond it, towards the north, is a palace, and the city of Irving is the fourth largest city in the continent, and it does its large size part due to the previous leader's reluctance to participate in needless warfare. and their sizable standing army is always at home, ready to rebuff raiders, and the city also enjoys a stable climate, ideal for producing crop all year round, and the forest provides meat and the river fishes, and they also actively participate in trade, and unlike most cities and feudals, the rich merchants run the show, and the guild system holds no sway over your reason. Your field belongs to one of those rich merchant family, and the old maid Sodoma leads us to the handsome two-story mansion near the palace, and it has a lovely metallic barricade and a luxurious garden and plenty of fruiting tree. And the garden also has peacocks here and there, and everything about your surroundings speaks opulence, and every looks at his surroundings with suspicion, and as for the Bashmago, he has chosen to stay solid while inside the town. This did not matter much, seeing as though he kept insisting on his mage look, and people in the city instantly disliked him the moment they saw him. And the Bashmago is aware of this, but he found it too tedious to remain incorporeal during the time he spent in society. And while going inside, Fiore comments, "This isn't my house." And Sodoma whispers a few hurried words to the person you naturally assume is the master of the house, and the noble Jen looks at you from head to toe, and he says, "Are you the one who stole our Fiore?" "No, she left of her own free will," you explain. "And you, young man, if I remember correctly, there's a bounty on your head, and the mages want you there for destroying their property, and you also burn a fishing village to the ground," he says, giving a cynical smile. "It was an accident, sir," says Irving, hiding behind you. Just send for the Lord's wife, don't you, and I'm not in the mood of entertaining bored noblemen," says the Bashmago, exasperated. "By the gods, the Bashmago, I heard rumors that you were alive," says the noble. "As alive as an undead can possibly be," says the Bashmago dryly, and he adds, "Lord say that he's originally from Urizen, and the 17th in line for the throne." Whined Fiore, "and I thought it was as good a time as any to have this little chat. And we must assess what sort of dangers you are to the kingdom, and if need be, what measure we must take to subdue you. And you seem like a reasonable sort of maiden, and perhaps you can use your talents for the well-being of the world instead of destroying every town you enter," says Lord Salot. "Point of fact, society is still standing," you say, folding your arms, and the Lord Salot gestures to another room and says, "And will you have some tea with me, and please settle down as my guest, and you will find it quite detesting maintaining a conversation while standing in the middle of an aisle." And before the others could follow after you, one of the men closes the door behind you. And annoyed, the Bashmago becomes incorporeal and manifests in the other side, and shaking his head, Lord Salot comments, "This won't do. I wish to speak to Lamina alone." And after you are left finally alone, you have a heart-to-heart conversation with Lord Salot in order to avoid future problems, and he decides to send a notice of all of your executions, and he also provides a new last name for you and identities for Irving and Fiore. And the problem is that the Bashmago is too stubborn to use the last name, and he's also a famous under pestilence, and wherever they see him, people already know that they must avoid him like the plague that he is. "So that is why everyone in the city was glaring at me," comments the Bashmago. "My fame precedes me. You can't blame the mages are already despised, and you have to go about and murder people every so often," you bark back. "Only the living can commit murder. As an undead, I am above the law," says the Bashmago, laughing. "You are incorrigible." "I could say the same thing about you, my sweet Lamina," says the Bashmago. And this exchange continues for some time, and Lord Salot tries several times to get your attention, but you continue to ignore him. And in the end, he takes a deep breath and he storms out of the room, doing his best to contain his anger. This is a good place to leave the chapter. Bye-bye and God bless.